Hey everyone, welcome to Buzzing About Romance, a quick shot of romance. I am Becky, and joining me for this quick shot is Jenny. Hey Jenny.
Hey Becky.
I'm kind of excited to check this title out and discuss it with you. It has been recommended, this author's been recommended to us multiple times by podcast listener Gretchen, but also this book in particular had some exciting things happen to it right after it was released.
Right.
So on this quick shot of romance, we are reviewing Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonam-Young. This is a standalone book, and exciting enough, currently this book is in Kindle Unlimited when we're recording it, but recently the author was able to sell the rights to this book to, I think someone said Penguin Random House.
Good for her.
Right. And it's a really great story. Like, I see why it was picked up.
Yes, it definitely has all the elements.
So we'll link the synopsis of this book on our On the Shelf show notes at buzzingaboutromance.com. Release date for this is July 11th of 2023. It's a one-night stand, accidental pregnancy, lovers to friends to lovers, slow burn, meet cute. This is an absolute standalone. We only get single point of view. We only get our heroine Winifred's, Winnie,
Yes.
whatever name. We only get her point of view through this book, and including the epilogue.
But it works. It works.
It does. It does. Put out percentage was 9%, and there is no third act breakup in this book. There's not even a dark moment.
No.
So I do want to say that this is another one of those books that read the author's note.
Yes.
Because there's some amazing disability rep in this book.
Yes, for both characters.
And the author herself is an own voice. This is an own voice for her. So let's talk about our heroine, Winifred, Fred, whatever you want to call her. We will call her Win for the purpose of the episode. So she's great. She's 28 or 29.
Right. And she seems like a very happy person, but she's also realistic, right?
Right. She works as, she's educated, but she works as a coffee barista and is also as a lifeguard. She has some dreams, but things have not been easy. She's kind of moving through life on the power of her own.
Yes.
She was raised by a single mom, sort of. Her mother and her mother's best friend both had children as teenagers, and together they raised their daughters.
Which I thought was an interesting, dynamic.
It was great because it adds this, her best friend Sarah, who was raised with her, it adds this very interesting dynamic between the two of them. Sisters, but not quite sisters. And I loved it. I loved their relationship.
Yes, it gives that, they're not gonna pull crap with each other, right? They know everything about each other.
So why this book is own voice is Wynn has an underdeveloped hand. It happened in utero, and so she was born with 3 nubs and a developed thumb and a shorter arm. And she has learned to compensate as she's moved forward in the world.
Right, she's adapted very well.
And in the author's note, the author tells us that she also has an underdeveloped. She calls it her little hand.
Yes.
And I just loved that. I thought that was just really, really great.
Right.
And there's some fun humor into it, but there's some really great dynamic moments too that, we often don't think about as adults when someone as a teen has a chronic illness or a disability. And she spent a lot of years trying to hide her little hand.
Great. Because I know for like my kid who has a chronic illness, like he's getting to that age where like, I'm a little different. Like maybe I don't want to like draw attention to this.
Yeah, ages third grade to seventh grade were a hellscape. Yeah, because they just want to be normal.
Right.
And she did. She didn't want any attention because she had this underdeveloped hand. And, but it's Sarah's mom who says, no, this is
This
both
is
hands
you.
out. Both hands out. Stop hiding.
Right.
And she embraces it because so there's a meet cute in this book.
Yes. At a Halloween party.
They're at a Halloween party and they're both dressed as pirates. Her as Captain Hook and our hero Bo as a peg-legged pirate, which is funny because he has a prosthetic leg.
Yes.
And so together they kind of, have this really interesting dynamic.
Yes. Like, I mean, it's that like automatic, like shared, like experience type thing,
Right?
right?
Yeah, it was so great. Um, and I really liked Wynn's character. I like that her life's not been easy, but she is living her life.
Right. Like one of the things I love is she's a swimmer. Like she swims all the time. And she very easily could have been like, like this is the sport for me because I'm not like even or whatever.
Right.
Um,
Now,
but she doesn't make excuses.
she doesn't, but she did have a bad relationship, and that affects how she functions in this new relationship with Bo.
Right.
So they have
And
the. Go ahead.
no, and he's completely opposite of what she's experienced, right? So she doesn't know how to deal with it.
Like, so Bo is book boyfriend swoon.
Yes.
Like, oh my God, could you be any more swoony? And if you liked Gage, Sawyer Bennett's hero Gage, then oh my gosh, you are going to love Bo. So Bo himself, though, his use of a prosthesis is newer for him. He's only had it about a year.
Yeah.
And he had cancer, bone cancer, and they needed to amputate in order to stop the cancer. Like,
Right.
and so they connect at this Halloween party. Someone assumes they're in a couple's costume, and they're not. And they go, and the Halloween party is at her best friend Sarah's house. And they go up into Sarah's guest room and have sex. But what was really interesting about it was the very first time that Bo had been with someone since he lost his leg.
Right. And this is like right, like very early in the book. It is on page. And I thought like the way it was done was I mean, yeah, they're having sex and it's spicy, but it's also like showing so much of how they see each other and how they
Well,
see themselves.
not just how they see each other, but how he's trying to figure out how to maneuver
Right.
because he hasn't done this. So he doesn't know which
Like what's gonna work.
positions, how he can do things. And he makes some statements and he does some things. And Wynn's like, what? Okay. She just goes with it. And they were dynamic on page together. Like the chemistry just sizzled.
Right.
And when I say it popped between the two of them. But Wynn is very clear she's not interested in a relationship. She is not putting herself out there.
Yeah, and I mean, again, we don't get his point of view, but he seems to be on the same page. Okay. Like,
And
that's
even if
fine.
he isn't, he's super respectful.
Like,
Like,
super. Like,
like he listens. Like if you like a hero that listens, dude listens in this book, right?
yeah, I mean, yeah, because he listens even when he's not the one being spoken to.
Right? So, time moves forward. She finds out that she is pregnant. She is pregnant, and now she has to contact this one night stand. So she goes to Sarah and Caleb, who he was friends with Caleb, and has to ask for his phone number.
Do we want to, like, is it too much spoiler if we say, like, why?
Well, no, I don't think so. I don't think so. So Bo was engaged to Caleb's evil older sister. That's how that she's explained through the whole book.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so there's some really great funny pieces in this book that I really want to talk about because it wasn't all just heavy emotion and swoon.
No, it's not. It's because I think I described it to you as like one of my mac and cheese reads.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely comforting, like gooey.
So they go on a
Yeah.
walk together to the beach that's just down the road. And this book, also, I will say, this book takes place in Canada, and there's really great conversations about choice
Yes.
and unwanted pregnancies and the options that were laid out for the character. And I loved that. We don't get that very often. It's obviously very different than it is right now in the US. But I loved that we got that.
And again, this is a book that like definitely read the author's note in the beginning. Like she explains like why she kept that in there.
Yeah.
And I respect that so much. Like, I mean, even before I read the book, I'm like, oh,
like this
thank you.
author, I don't know this author at all. I have no connection to this author, but she went up a couple levels for me. Like, I'm like,
Yes.
yeah, okay, we're here for this. Um, so there's a really funny scene, and there's several very funny scenes, but
There
this
are.
one, they after she's moved in with him, they're trying to navigate, figure out things, ends up being it's smart for her to move in with him. They go on a walk down to a beach that's about 10 minutes from the house, and he hears the honking of geese. Guys, it's Canada. There's geese. And he's afraid of the geese because apparently they go after his prosthetic, the shiny metal.
Yeah.
I was dying. And he's like gonna throw a rock at them.
Yes.
And she's like, I'll save you. I'll save you. Um, so I do have to say this book must have hit your nerdy little heart
It did.
so hard.
It's, especially when he brings his friends over.
So there's a whole D&D night that was so good and so funny. I will say Caleb and Sarah the interaction at D&D night
Yes.
was phenomenal. So funny. I don't know if Sarah and Caleb have a book or I just
I
need a
don't know.
novella because
Right.
they're so funny,
They yes.
you know.
And yeah, and that whole like situation, like you see a lot of the dynamics of all the characters, which helps build it to like this realistic, like you believe in where the book's going.
Yeah. Well, and Sarah gives them as a couple this 20 how to fall in love in 20 questions.
Oh yes, I forgot about
And
that.
those were so well done. There was, there's such great questions and the dynamic between the two of them, you really learn a lot about them. And like when says he wants to be famous, but he wants to be Andy Serkis famous. Like if you aren't a nerd or married to a nerd, you are going to have no idea who Andy Serkis is. I am lucky enough to be married to such a person. And so I knew who he was and what they're talking about and why he wants to be him. But it also leads to Lord of the Rings. And she's like, oh, how long is this movie? He's like, oh, we're just going to say we're going to be doing this evening. I'm like, oh, dear. Dear, dear, dear.
And she's pregnant. Like, Lord, she is not staying awake.
Right? I would have made it like 20 minutes and been out. um, I I did really love all the emotions and feelings in this book. Not only like Bo's coming to terms that he has a future that he didn't expect to have a year previous, but also Win in her realism
Yes.
and being scared because now while I was fine during my first pregnancy, my second pregnancy was very different because I had had an ill child. And so, your concerns are so different and
Completely.
he listened. he heard her, he comforted her because she was concerned about potentials of passing on the underdeveloped hand.
Right. Yeah. I mean, as one would be, like.
And she doubted if she could be a mother. There's a scene in a restaurant where she's like, watching another mother pick up her baby. And she's like, I don't know.
Right. Because you think of all the things you do one-handed as a mother, like, because have the child on the other side. Yeah.
Yeah. And the author did a phenomenal job, like expressing those emotions and feelings. And I had some sobby moments in this book. I'm not going to even lie. The conversation between Wynn and Beau's dad.
Right. Right. I really like the family dynamics because they both have very different.
Right. So,
but again, a shared experience.
And we didn't talk about this, but Beau was raised by a single dad. His mother died shortly after he was born.
Right.
And if you want more information on that, is it listed in the author notes?
Yes.
I think so.
Yes.
The mother.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought so too. But yeah, like I really enjoyed this story. Like I was really impressed with this story. Did I want Beau's point of view? 1,000%. Like if I had to say a rating, I'd say a 4-star. It would have been 5 if I had had his point of view.
Right. And I think part of the way, like, it works 100%. Like there wouldn't been as much, like, because you don't know what he's thinking, right?
Right.
So there's not the, like, you only get her point of view, and she just doesn't think he's interested. She thinks he's still hung up.
Right. She still thinks he's hung up on his ex. She has a hard time trusting because of how her ex treated her. So there is a lot of stuttering and stopping, which is why it's lovers to friends to lovers.
Right. And they are both very open that, like, they're going to be involved in this child's life. Like, right. So you're stuck with this person.
And he's like 29. Like there's no age gap. They're both, but he is successful. Like he definitely took a very traditional, successful business, financial type route. He's
definitely a nerd.
Yeah. Yeah. He followed the rules. She's much more of a free spirit. Her love of houseplants, I thought was hilarious. When she moves in with like 48 houseplants. And he's like, okay.
Yeah, because she asked him. Right. But, if somebody was moving in my house, I would.
And they were not little houseplants. Like, there was a palm and stuff. Like,
right? Like, I imagine, like, because she moves in while he is, like, on a business trip, which, like, how considerate is that? Like,
well, and also the little thing, like, this is one of the things that sold me. He left all the doors open, which when Caleb and Sarah go like digging through his closet and his drawers, I'm like, guys, but I totally would have done it too.
You would have been the one.
When I hear the lightsaber go on, Caleb's like, whoa. It's so funny. It's so funny.
It is.
But yeah, I enjoyed this book immensely.
I did. Yes, I did too.
And it was just kind of the light, fun read that I needed. There was emotion in it. It was not just rom-com. There was absolute big feels and emotions and some heady topics you don't always think about. But we came off of a fairly heavy read.
Yes.
And went into this, and it made it a little easier. Like, it was just the lightness my heart needed. Okay, so do you have a book you think we should review for a quick shot of romance? Send us an email to thebees@bookcaseandcoffee.com, and we will add it to our TBRs. Jenni, thanks so much for hanging out with me and talking about Out on a Limb.
You're welcome.
Until next time, everyone, happy reading.
Find us on Instagram at BuzzingAboutRomance or on Twitter at BuzzingRomance. If If you like the podcast, please leave a review. If you'd like to support us directly, join the Bookcase and Coffee Patreon and receive exclusive content only available to Patreon members. Check out bookcaseandcoffee.com for our on-the-shelf show notes.